I've already created the razor file and the code behind class for the benefit selector component. In the code behind class, again using the partial class technique, I'm adding a private field of the type IEnumerable of benefit model called benefits, which is initially null. I want to fill this property with data. But for this, I need the benefit API service class I prepared. It can fetch the benefits for one employee from the API. I have registered it in the dependency injection container by using its interface. Regular constructor injection into this class doesn't work, because the component is constructed automatically and needs a parameterless constructor. However, we can use the inject attribute. Just write a property of the type you want injected and decorate it with the inject attribute. If you prefer writing code in the razor file, you can inject types by using add inject, like this. The variable you declare here can be used in the code segment. The benefits property has to be populated as soon as the component initially renders. We can hook into events in the lifecycle of a component by overriding virtual methods that exist in the component base class. One of these is onInitialized async. There's also a synchronous version of this. OnInitialized is the lifecycle method we need to fill the benefits property because it fires as soon as the component is finished rendering. In here we're calling getForEmployee on the benefits data service. And that method retrieves all benefits for a particular employee. But we need to pass the employee to the getForEmployee method. And right now we don't know who the employee is. We need the employee to be set by the component that renders this component. So we add a property of the type employee model with the parameter attribute. And now we can pass that object we're getting from the other component on to the getEmployee method. We don't have any useful markup yet, but let's render the component in employee row instead of the text we added earlier. Here we know who the employee is, so we can just pass it to the benefit selector component. Now let's take another look at employee overview. That's the component I promised you would understand later. Well, later is now. Let's take another look. In its code behind file, the employee API service is injected, and in onInitialized async, a method on that is called to fill the employee's property. Initially, this property is null. In the razor, a loading notice is conditionally rendered depending if employees is null or not. If it's not null, a table is rendered with the employee rows. Now all this passing on of objects might be confusing at this point. So let's take a step back for a second and look at the component hierarchy we have now. The employee overview component fetches the collection of employee model objects from the API. For each of the objects it renders an employee row passing on the employee. And when the show benefits property is true, employee then renders the benefit selector, which also gets the employee model object. We're zooming into lifecycle methods some more in the next clip.